Hello, welcome back to my kitchen, not the garden today, because as promised, I'm going to do a final sort of review or look at my Let Pot hydroponics setup here. It's been roughly 30 days or so. And as I said in the first video, I would come back and we would take a closer look at it. So that's what we're doing today. So the Let Pot hydroponic system, if you're not aware, I did a video on setting it up and putting the seeds in, and I was growing basil, and this is Genovese basil, and I believe this is giant parsley, I believe, not mistaken. If I'm wrong, I'll put something below here, but either way, I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with the system overall. Let's start with the motor noise. And when I initially set it up, I said it was incredibly quiet. And for the most part, it still is. Although I do hear it sometimes, mostly when the water level is getting a little low. And by a little low, I mean at least a liter down. Now this can take something like 5 liters of water, which is roughly a gallon of water, I think, if my math is correct. And I've had to fill this twice now. Each time I let it get about a liter to 2 liters low, then I top it off, and each time I topped it off with water, I use, well, first of all, I used spring water. You could use spring water, distilled water. I wouldn't use tap water necessarily for fear of clogging or damaging the filter in some way. And you have to add in your nutrient chemicals, and all that is explained in the book that you get. And you have enough of those nutrient chemicals to, I would say, to at least get you through one growing season. I'd like to do a little bit more experimentation with this thing, and one of the things I'd like to do is maybe grow some flower seeds on and then plant them out into the garden. So start them here and then plant them out someplace in the garden. As you can see, the basil, it all looks pretty good. One of the things that becomes sort of a little bit of an issue, it's just a sort of a little issue here, is that you have, let's say, like this smaller plant here, it's sort of getting starved a bit by this larger plant here behind it. So if you're going to grow something like a basil, then maybe spread them out. So maybe you do one plant here, one plant on the other side, that kind of thing. The parsley I had a little bit of a problem with because it grew slower, but it seemed to catch up. I also lost a couple of plants. I lost, I lost 3 parsley plants because what had happened is that on the top of each of the tubes where you plant your seeds, there's a little paper cap. Well, my seeds weren't exactly in the middle, and when my seedlings came up, if they're off to one side of the cup or the container, then what happens is they can get caught underneath that paper, and therefore they'll just start trying to grow underneath that paper, and they won't break the paper cap, and then therefore they won't grow into a full-size plant. So they got very leggy, and they didn't make it. So that's what happened, but that's fine. I still have 3 plants in here, and yeah, they're hanging in there. So, and they're actually looking pretty good. Like I said, the bigger one here is just shading out the smaller one. I have one over here that's trying to grow out from the light, which is another problem now because these upper leaves won't get as much light. And this is actually at its maximum elevation. So let me just verify. Yep, that's at maximum elevation. So that's the other issue. So if you're going to try something like this at home, just be aware of that if you have something like a basil, which could easily grow another foot or so, then that would be a issue so far as the height. But I can turn around and just start trimming this back and using this basil in a pesto, which I may wind up doing, which that would actually make a nice dinner maybe tonight, tomorrow night, I'm not sure. But either way. So again, this is my first time using it, so spacing is an issue. Take that into note, the type of crop that you're growing. So whereas this one germinated and grew faster than the parsley, but the parsley did catch up, and I have some good, pretty healthy looking plants, and I can use both of them. The light was never an issue. The automatic timer was never an issue. The app I barely used other than setting it up initially. If you were going to grow or have multiple of these, you could control them all through the app and set different, I guess, times for them and things like that, but I only have the one here, so. And the other thing that I never paid attention to outside, because you're outside, you just go ahead and do it sort of naturally, but your plants are either getting watered by the rain, or you're hand watering them with a hose or sprinkler or drip system, whatever it is. You're watering your plants, but you don't pay attention to how much water they consume. Here with the water gauge, I can actually monitor and see how much water they've gone through. And like I said, I filled it twice, and so I'd say they've used at least 3 liters of water, if not maybe 4, but let's figure at least 3 liters of water that they're pulling up. Oh, and then one last thing to mention with this system is that I've tasted these basil leaves, and though they taste fine, they're missing something. And my wife and I were sort of talking about it last night, and it's probably any and all minerals that the plant would absorb while it's actually in the ground. So if you plant basil in the ground, it absorbs a certain amount of minerals from the soil, and therefore your basil has a certain flavor. Here it's a nutrient water, so it has a certain amount of nitrogen, phosphate, all the things it needs to grow. So yes, it has grown and it is edible, it just doesn't taste the same. That is something I wanted to point out. But that's it. That's the Le Pot hydroponic system. Not a bad system at all. Like I said, I'll probably make some pesto out of some of these basil leaves because I have far too many right now. Maybe I'll mix a little parsley into that pesto. And I will probably turn around. I don't think I have any more sponges, so I will have to buy more sponges and more liquid if I want to use this to start, let's say, flower seeds in here. If you guys have any questions or comments, anything like that, please leave them below. If you want to try out your own Le Pot hydroponic system, there is links to that below. I have affiliate links to that below, so if you go ahead and purchase yourself one, I can make a small commission off of that with no cost to you. So that's going to wrap it up for today. I'm going to catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.